I don't know what I thought, but this is not what I.
Not what you had pictured?
Not what I had pictured.
This is it, brother.
In some ways, it's better.
Oh, yeah. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Witt. With me, as always, is my cousin Adam Schmidt. Adam, how are you?
Spectacular. How are you?
If I was any better, I'd be the man sitting in between us. And with no further ado, I'll let you introduce our next studio guest in the Rum Dum Studios.
So with us is a man that I met when I was 14. And let's see, I'm 58 now, so that's...
It's a long time.
However long that is. No, but I met Steve. Steve Snodgrass is with us.
Steve Snodgrass, ladies and gentlemen.
Steve Snodgrass.
How are you?
I'm good. I think if I was any better, I'd be y'all.
Oh.
I like that.
We never got that before.
No. Are you from Kentucky?
Tables have been turned.
No, I've spent enough time in South Carolina now at this point.
South
like,
now.
Yes, you've got the y'all down.
Yeah, you can't go into people's offices without talking about like their fishing trip and their mom and them.
Oh yeah. How's mom and them doing? Oh, that's good. So, Steve, we are going to take this podcast and we're gonna get to know you a little bit. So, the first thing I want to say about Steve, if I can, Steve was the very first follower of the Nosebleed Sports Podcast before it was the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. We were, what were we, Chris and Adam on sports, then we were Capcast, and then I think then it turned into the Nosebleeds, right?
Something like that.
I'm pretty sure.
We were throwing around names all the time.
Steve was on like the very first one, the very first follower of the podcast. So we appreciate that, man.
Yeah, so not living in Ohio or specifically in Cincinnati anymore, and I've been away since about 2002, 2003 time frame, and I haven't even been back for a visit in probably 4, 5, 6 years. So getting your version of what's going on in Cincinnati sports is probably a more relevant take for somebody who grew up in Cincinnati and can appreciate some of the woes that Cincinnati sports fans go through.
We go through quite a bit of woes, is right.
Good timing on that right now, too, with the Bengals.
With the Bengals, which we can get into. So, coming from that, so are you from, what took you to North Carolina? Is it north or south?
South.
Where are you at in South Carolina?
So I'm in Columbia.
Columbia, what are you doing down there?
So I'm.
You're not in South Carolina. You're in Columbia.
I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. Yeah. Wrong. That's Columbia.
There you go.
So I'm active duty Army.
All right. Yes.
All right. So I've been in. It'll be 20 years in March.
Wow.
So you're about to retire then. What do you put in? 25, 20, 25?
So I've got some like straight National Guard time. So the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year time in there. So I've probably got at the very least I've got 6 years left before I can retire with 20 active duty years. The long term goal, just for life and plans and how all those things work out, is they're probably just gonna have to push me out at some point in time. So
especially like if you're in the Army and you're like sitting behind it, I don't know, unless you're like on the front lines, you like going out every once in a while, catching up on some sand in the
You're
desert.
going out with a shield, like just deflecting bullets.
I totally see you like Captain America out there, like everybody's in camo and you come out in like this blue tights with a
it's very
blue
close
tights with a star on
it's
your
very
shirt.
close to that. No, so I sit behind a desk. I do stuff on things.
I do stuff on things.
Yeah, so
is this one of those you got to say stuff on things because you got like 7 clearances that you got to go through and that top secret stuff?
No, so I have a fairly boring job. I do data trend analysis for force health protection. So I keep track of basically people's ability to deploy medically. So somebody else does their training, somebody else does their personnel piece, Somebody else does, are they legally allowed to leave the country?
And then you got how healthy are you?
How healthy are you?
Whew. I'm going to tell you what I'd get on that test. Big old F.
Yeah, so
a big old F for fat.
Yeah. Yeah, so I take care of like the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical aspects of 1,100 people that predominantly our brigade takes care of aviation and aviation support. So we're a little unique. We have all 4 airframes that the Army flies, and we have our own support battalion that supports those other 2 flying battalions. We have, the AH-64 Apache, the UH-60 Blackhawk, the CH-47 Chinook, and the UH-72 Lakota.
Man.
So,
wow. So you're not just saying, okay, this guy's cholesterol's high, he can't go anywhere. You're like everything. Like if somebody is having so many people have anxiety now. If somebody is dealing with some severe anxiety or something, you have to identify that and say this person is okay enough to be deployed or they're not. I mean, what data do you have to whether to know whether or not a person is?
Yeah, so the Army loves a form. So most of it is through just one-on-one, face-to-face interview. So we have to rely on the service member providing us a certain amount of accurate information. And then if they say, I have anxiety or I'm taking this medication, does that medication meet the deployability standard for the area that they're deploying to? And if not, can we request a waiver? So I don't actually make any of the decisions. I gather all the information and create a threat analysis on each person, quasi, and then I have a full-time provider that actually gets to I
have a full-time provider too.
Yeah. So
she's upstairs right now.
So he actually is the one that kind of makes the legitimate medical decision.
Gotcha.
But I'm just a data crunching analysis guy. I work on spreadsheets all day.
Ooh.
I do.
Still pretty cool. That's
so you always think of the Army, and there's all these different things that go down in the Army, Navy, Marines. There's so many different jobs. I mean, they'd have to push me out too. I mean, if I was 20 years in, and if I'm just sitting back there crunching numbers, you got your formulas and your papers, and plus you're on a computer all day, so you still get to catch up on your fantasy football team and everything like that.
There's some downtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to be in a battalion where I was the direct, I'm the one who's in charge of actually taking care of point of injury, wound care, and training those medics that work for me to be able to continuously do that and keep skills straight. But not anymore. I don't have. I think I have one person that works for me, and they know almost as much as I do, and so hey, we're good, and she's awesome.
So
and she runs our actual aviation clinic, so we have to give all the pilots and crew members flight physicals.
Yeah.
So she takes care of that entire arm of it.
Nice.
So I rarely have to get involved in that.
So back in high school, you guys met as assistant trainers or managers or whatever you want to call it. You guys helped out the trainer for basketball and football, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So is that what got you into? Did that push you towards the medical side of the Army, or it just happened that way?
So this is very funny.
If it's the truth. If that did happen, then I assume that you just tell everybody if they're not exactly where they need to be to ice it and stretch.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of
right.
Yeah,
Karen Sims.
Karen Sims. So there's probably a little bit of truth to that. So, I like a lot of people. You get that idea that once I graduate high school, I'm going to go to college, and I too had that thought process. And I was a horrible student, so. It probably wasn't going to go well.
I think I can agree. I know where you're coming from.
I can relate to that.
So, and, my parents at the same time were like, I don't necessarily think we're going to pay for college because based off of the performance that you put out in high school.
Yeah.
And so I just honestly, I looked around. I was like, it doesn't seem like it's going to be feasible for me to be able to work a full-time job, to be able to pay for college and be successful. Like, this isn't going to work. I got to find another way. And I just think I got lucky enough that when all of that was going on in my life and head, an Army recruiter was in, the lunchroom at Elder, and with a big banner says, "I'll pay for college." And I was like, "Buddy, I need somebody to pay for college right now." So
that sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. Actually.
Yeah. So
they know how to pull on the strings.
Yeah. So what it really turned into was, it was the round hole that I was looking to fall into, and I've actually yet to execute any of those free college funds.
That's all right.
20 years later,
you get it for the rest of your life, right? So once you retire, go ahead and take care of it then.
Yeah. So
or if you're like me, screw it. I appreciate the
start
thought.
a podcast.
Yeah, start a podcast.
I appreciate the thought. But
Yeah.
I'm still not going to school.
Yeah. So I've actually just now started some online classes.
Nice.
Like I'm doing like one a term,
Yeah.
every other term. So it'll.
Are you? Do you have any classes with Antonio Brown?
Yes, no, I don't. But it'll probably take me the same amount of time to graduate as it will to get him back in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, okay then.
Yeah. So,
Montez Perfect might be showing up in one of your classes too.
yeah, it's very possible, very possible. So, I'm actually pretty fortunate that I can actually take all of my college benefits and pass them on to both my kids. So there's
that's cool.
There's a fantastic chance that if they're not knuckle draggers like I am, that they'll actually be able to go to college like for free, without having to join the Army. So hopefully all that works out for them.
Yeah.
Man, I got to talk to my dad. I didn't know that was an option. What are you doing with your life, Dad? I could have went. If you were in the Army, I could have gone to school for free.
Let's be honest. I'm sure there's some. I'm sure there's some stipulations to that still. I'm sure they got to turn their grades in because I still wouldn't have gone to school for free because I'm sure that I think I was at like a 0.8 GPA when I dropped out of college. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been eligible for any funds from my dad's Army funds.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they've got. I
guarantee it.
We got to probably look into that.
Yeah,
that could be.
I guarantee it.
That could be trouble.
So all right, so you go into the. Did you start off in the same place you are now, or did you do something different in the beginning?
No, so I've always had the same job. I've only ever done one job. I've always been a medic in the Army. When I initially was going kind of through the recruitment process, I had it in my mind that I wanted to have a legitimate skill in the real world. All right, like I didn't want to drive a tank because there's not a whole lot of like civilian tank drivers.
Yeah, seriously though, how cool would that be? Just come back home after deployment, jump in your tank, and roll down the road.
Yeah. So I narrowed it down between being a medic and being a vehicle mechanic. And at the time, we had a really close family friend who was, a mechanic and like a shade tree mechanic. He just ran a business out of his garage behind his house.
Yeah.
And he said, "This is the worst job in the world. Like, you never ever want to do this. Like, do anything else." And I was like, "All right, that's pretty sound advice."
Sounds like I know what I'm not doing.
So yeah, I chose the medic route, and it's been great. I've been a lot of different places and done a lot of different things. I've driven a tank as a medic.
There you go. See, so you still got to.
I still got to drive the tank.
You still got the real life skill.
Yeah. So yes, it worked out. It did work out. And I'll tell you, after you drive a tank for like 20 minutes, you're like, I'm done driving this tank.
Oh,
it's not as exciting as it is.
I imagine they're not super fast, so I feel like you're never gonna get there.
Oh yeah, I could totally outrun a tank. Tank would never hurt me because I could just outrun it.
Yeah.
Well, you could outrun the tank.
Sure.
Not sure you could outrun that giant gun that's on the front or missile that comes out of the front.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure how fast our tanks go, but no, they get up and go.
They can get up?
Yeah, they get up and go. So it's a jet turbine engine.
Oh.
So
you need that to get all that stuff moving.
Yeah, so it's the same engine that's actually in the Apache helicopter. There's two of them that run the M1A1.
Wow.
There you go.
One or two of them. So yeah, no, those things they get up and go. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, something new every day.
Yeah. So but you did some actual training, right? Like you were trained to fight still.
Oh, sure.
Correct.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
starting with the very beginning, because it was the National Guard that you started in, correct?
Yep.
And you did the, like you mentioned, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year thing, and it was like basic training, basically, right?
Yeah, so I went. So I signed my contract in March. I actually went to basic training in October. Went to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and that was a big culture shock. So it gets hot here in Cincinnati, right? It gets humid, it gets sticky. But like getting off the plane in Oklahoma in the middle of the night, and it's like 112 degrees, and it just feels like you're in a blast furnace. And so, basic training's 9 weeks long, and when I graduate on December 16th of, 99, and it's, minus like 18 degrees. So in a 9-week shift, we went from like 112, 115 degrees to like minus 15, minus 20 degrees.
Wow.
So it was... I don't think I've ever experienced that kind of temperature change.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy when we had like 30-degree, 40-degree changes. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
So that was crazy. I got to come home for 2 weeks because of it shut down for the holidays, and then I went back to training, what we call advanced individual training, and so I go to Fort Sam, Houston in San Antonio, Texas, and that class was also 9 weeks. And it's split in 2 parts. It was, combat medic skills, so point of injury, wound care type skills, and then an EMT license. So
so you have your EMT license?
I do, yeah. And I still, it's still required for like the Army MOS that you have a EMT license. So
there you go. So you got... Like you said, you got a real life skill to fall back on besides driving that tank.
I got that $9 an hour job to fall back on. Yeah, it didn't work out the way I thought it would.
So, but you had to be trained to like, shoot different guns and operate a tank and throw grenades and ninja stars and stuff like that.
I did.
Not ninja stars.
I
scored. Hold on now.
I scored.
Let's ask before we just assume. Did you learn how to throw a ninja star?
No ninja stars. We did throw grenades. I scored expert on grenades, actually.
Nice.
So what do you got to do when? How do you score in throwing grenades? I feel like it's got a pretty good spread. So if you're trying to hit something.
If you kill more than 10 people with one grenade.
I feel like with the spread of the grenade,
so
as long as you get it within, 20 yards away, you probably did a good job.
Yeah, so I think it was 5 feet. So remember if you
threw that thing 5 feet away from you?
No, you've got to get it within a 5 feet range.
Oh.
So the distances that you're throwing it change, but if I liken it to... you got to clean up all the baseballs in the back of the cage, and you're trying to get it in the bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's that game. So, and that's about the size of a grenade. Honestly, a grenade is about the size of a baseball. Huh. So, now that's honestly, it's the only time I've ever thrown a grenade. Right,
because you're trained to do it.
Yeah, they don't really give the medics grenades, right? That's not really one of those things that.
Sure.
It's not one of those primary skills that they're like really, really worried about us being efficient.
Did you at least have some like on your suit when you were out there? Did they didn't even give you a couple to like chain on your belt?
No, because they're like you may hurt yourself and
everyone
else. Yeah, so
and
you got a lot more work to do.
Yeah. Now, job security, right? On one hand,
exactly.
Medics are a little different, right? So because the U.S. actually follows the Geneva Convention, so we're not actually allowed to use what we actually call any like the U.S. weapons or squad-based weapons. So any of the machine guns, I'm not actually supposed to shoot. So I shot them all at basic training, and I shoot them all like when we go to the range and stuff. But I'm never going to, in theory, operate one of those overseas.
Right.
So.
How many times have you been deployed overseas?
Overseas, so just once. We went to Iraq.
It was Vietnam, right?
Yeah, it was Vietnam, right? So we went to Iraq in 2011.
Wasn't it 99 that you graduated from basic training? So that's right around. They're cleaning up, right?
Yeah,
it's the cleanup.
I'm not very good at history.
So Iraq in 11 and 12, and I'd been mobilized some other times, but not overseas. But that was an interesting experience. Like I took myself and 5 other medics, and one provider, and we set up a clinic and we took care of. It fluctuated, but at one time it got up to about 20 to 30,000 people.
Oh.
And so it was like running a family medical practice with like an emergency room, with a lab and an X-ray and a pharmacy. So we got some other people from some other units. So we had in total, we had like 4 or 5 providers and probably about a dozen or so medics.
Wow.
So if you've ever seen the show MASH,
there you go.
Yeah.
So if you had
they had more people.
if you had to compare yourself to one guy on MASH, who would you be?
Oh, wow. I think it would be more fun for the people that had to work for me.
Yeah, to name that.
Because
that's your homework. You got to go back to work and ask.
Let's hope none of them are watching.
If you are, or if you listen, feel free to leave in the comment exactly who Steve would be on MASH.
It's probably really it's probably pretty close. I would imagine most people would be like, he was Burns, and that just to try and make me mad, honestly.
so that sounds like they would be spot on.
It's I'm a very difficult person to work for. I tell them that going into it, this isn't going to be any fun for anybody, especially y'all. So,
whatever.
There's not a lot to do when you're deployed. You're either at work or you're asleep. Right? There's no movie theaters. There's no let's not go play basketball. Let's not
So they don't go out and play baseball or football, or there's none of that stuff when you're not playing. You always see when they're overseas, they're tossing football in the desert or doing.
Yeah, I mean, you may have somebody toss a football around with, but you're not. That's usually outside of where you're working.
I got you.
So
right. Sure, of course.
Because if you're not at work, there's not usually enough people for the amount of work that's actually got to be done.
Yeah.
So if you're not at work, then they're even more shorthanded. So usually, if you actually get an off day, you may sleep in a little bit.
But you're going back to work.
You may leave a little early for dinner than you normally would, but you're going to end up at work working.
Yeah,
anyway.
nothing else to do.
Right. And so my unique situation running a clinic, I was, I was the only one in charge, and so I was doing all the paperwork, and I was doing all of the radio calls and all those other stuff. So when we had to medevac somebody out, I had to do all that paperwork, had to call the helicopter, to call the evac squad. So I'm having to deal with all of the behind the scenes stuff while they're kind of actually managing packaging patients. So so if I'm not there, it's not to say that nobody could have done it.
Yeah.
But it's easier if you just kind of live there. So for that year, I pretty much slept in my office, and I would take a 2 or 3 hour nap, 4 or 5 times a day.
There you go.
Wow.
And just in between where we usually had kind of workflow peaks.
Man.
So.
Well, that sounds like fun. So what other places have you been besides besides Iraq?
So,
I mean, you've had to go to other situations, or been in other parts of the country, or.
So I've been all over for different training events. I've been to Minnesota, and I did that with the armor unit. So I drove a tank through the snow.
Nice.
Yeah, they're heavy enough that they don't really slide around a lot. I did have a situation. I was at Fort Knox with the tanks, with our armor battalion that's out of Cincinnati. So we were at Fort Knox, and Fort Knox is extremely hilly. So the main part of the post is at the top of one hill, and then the ranges are on the top of 2 other hills. And so there's big, giant valleys between them. And we actually had a tank slide off one of the roads and kind of tumble down one of those hills. So
who got in trouble for that one?
Nobody. So honestly, as crazy
dishonorably
as it is,
discharged.
Yeah, as crazy as it is, it doesn't matter how big anything is, it's just going to slide across ice, and so that's honestly what had happened. It had just hit a big enough piece of black ice that the tank literally just slid.
That's crazy.
And so when it hit the soft dirt, it just sank in and just flipped and just kept going.
I would love to have seen that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, so the guy that was in it.
Well then.
So the guy that was
it was parked at the top of the hill and just slid off.
No,
how'd he end up?
So there's 2 guys in it. There's a driver and a TC, and the TC actually, as it's starting to slide, decided to bail. So he was able to get
What's
off
TC
of it.
stand for?
Tank commander.
Okay, so is he in the tank or is he outside holding on
He's
to the gun?
he's like the guy you'd see like standing up out of the hatch.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone. I'm him. I'm gone too.
Yeah.
That or quick close of the hatch.
Yeah,
I mean,
so the driver is stuck. He's underneath where you see the gun.
Yeah.
So he's riding that thing in. So
do you have seatbelts in a tank? I feel like you probably don't.
So
need...
it's a 5-point harness. So
okay.
he was lucky enough that he was actually wearing it. He was doing the right thing, and he had his helmet on. So I mean, other than taking a pretty crazy ride and being like a penny in a pop can,
God, that had to be awesome. Still,
but yeah, he totally walked out of that thing fine.
Nice.
Like,
wow, that's cool.
Probably one of the better near misses that I've
better to be lucky than good, right?
Yeah. So not all of them have worked out that way, unfortunately. Sure. But
so did it land on its like track? Or?
So it landed on its side.
How many of you guys? How many Army? How many soldiers did it take to push the tank
just leave
back
that
over?
Yeah. So you actually
it's still there today.
No, so we pulled it. So luckily it did get to the bottom of the hill, all the way to the bottom, and so they just drug it straight out to the road at the bottom. But
what do you use to drag a tank? Another tank?
Yeah, so they call it an M88. It's a tow truck for a tank. So if
they make it, you know, my favorite thing in the world, this real side piece, real here. Side piece, real here.
Yeah,
who says that?
Real quick here.
Yeah. So side note, real quick. That's what I meant to say. Side note, my favorite thing in the world to see is a tow truck towing a tow truck.
Yeah.
Have I ever said that before?
Not anymore. Now your favorite thing is a tow truck towing a tank.
No, I still feel like actually that might be my note. I still haven't seen it though.
Yeah.
I feel like
so. You actually have seen one. You've seen one. So the iconic picture of the soldiers with the Iraqis climbing the statue of Saddam and wrapping the cable around, that's an 88.
Okay.
That's what an 88 looks like.
Okay.
So you've seen one. It just wasn't pulling a tank.
It wasn't pulling a tank. It was just helping people climb.
That's right, yeah.
Gotcha.
So that thing landed...
pulling down statues of dictators.
If that thing landed on its top, is that guy just trapped in there?
Yep. So the lucky thing was it did land on its side, and it had displaced the turret enough that he was able to get out through the driver's hatch. Wow. So yeah,
that could have been a rough couple hours. Hopefully they got like a cooler down there with some water.
Oh yeah,
something for him to hang out with.
There's no room for anything down there.
There's no room for anything. So the driver's hatch he's in like a cocoon. The rest of the
most claustrophobic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Really? I always thought it was just like the inside of a car, like the front seat of a car.
No, so they have to kind of slide in, right? Like the seat completely lays flat, they slide in, and they have to kind of sit it up.
Yeah.
But it's it's less of a seat than like a metal folding chair.
Wow. That's pretty insane.
So
I can't keep
the rest of the thing. The rest of the tank crew fits in the turret. So there's 3 other folks. There's a TC, the gunner, and the loader. So there's 3 other people in there.
But that dude driving's got the cocoon.
Yep, he's sucked in that thing tight.
So Fort Knox, right? This all happened at Fort Knox.
I did.
All right. So I got a question for you.
Yes.
Is there any gold in Fort Knox? Or is that thing empty?
That's what they say.
Is it empty?
I don't know. They don't let anybody near it.
So there's got to be somebody near it.
I mean, so you see it from the highway. If you drive past Fort Knox, you see it. Yeah. But it's got multiple layers of fencing around it.
So when you were at Fort Knox for the training, you weren't training on how to falsify how much gold is actually at Fort Knox.
So they've old stories about Fort Knox because it's changed. It doesn't do the same kind of stuff anymore. But they used to actually, that's where they would train everybody for armor and Cav Scouts and all those people. And that was a week of their training was if the gold depository gets attacked, this is what we're going to do to try and defend it. So obviously that's not a thing anymore because those people just aren't there anymore. Yeah. But they say the gold is still there. I mean, I don't know. It's what the economy's based on.
I guess what I understand.
That's what they tell us.
Yeah, they just keep printing money anyway. So I mean, once you become trillions of dollars in debt, does the little bit of gold we got in there really even mean anything anymore? Yeah. Or what's left or what's not in there.
Yeah.
So what is the worst injury you've seen that you've had to treat?
Man, that's the last thing I want to know. All right, go ahead.
We can save it to last if you want to wait till last.
Yeah.
No.
So I mean, I
totally hate gruesome, gory stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of that. But go ahead. Let's hear how gruesome you can get.
I don't really like a lot of gruesome stuff.
Well, sure. He's
you're in
not
the wrong line of work.
He's not asking you what your favorite injury was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What's the worst one?
So actually, the person that I took the clinic over for,
Yeah.
wasn't a very nice person. Okay. She had an opinion of leadership that was very different than mine. Mm-hmm. And she was a corrections officer from California, is what she was doing before she ended up in Iraq.
Okay.
And she at one point in time was like, you have to treat these people like animals because they are. And I was like, we clearly have different concepts of like how to develop a team. so she had been hiding the fact that she had a seizure disorder and was having somebody from home send her anti-seizure medication.
Holy cow.
So we're in Iraq and, the drawdown is taking place. And so the first thing that goes is mail.
Oh.
So she's now having to like slowly ration her medication out. So instead of taking 3 of these pills a day or whatever it was, she's now down to 2 and then 1 every other day and then 1 every 3 days. So, and they're almost gone. I mean, they leave in like a day or 2. And they were actually using outgoing mail was still a thing. Incoming mail had stopped for weeks.
Gotcha.
So, she borrowed our truck to take stuff over to the post office to mail home, and they were bringing it back. And she told the driver like, "Hey, I'm getting nauseous. Like, pull over." So she pulls over kind of on the side of this road, and it's got a really high road like crown and a really deep ditch. And she gets lightheaded enough that she falls out of the truck, with her hands on the door handle, her other arms wrapped up in the seatbelt, and she falls out of the truck and basically uses her face to catch her fall. So, yeah. So that was probably the most like catastrophic injury. Like it knocked out a lot of her teeth. It broke both of her orbits around her eyeballs. It dislocated like one side of her jaw.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer gal.
Yeah.
And that's...
You know what, though? Honestly, though, I mean, if that's the worst...
That's surprising.
I feel like that. I feel like that's not as bad as what I was expecting.
It's the worst one I want to share on a podcast.
Oh, okay.
The best part of that was we're doing a shift change kind of right in the middle of all this. We get her in and we get her packaged up and we're getting her taken care of. We take a bunch of x-rays and we get her taken care of. We get her totally high on morphine, so she's not feeling anything.
Sure.
The best part was like, so when you bring somebody into a trauma bay, you put somebody like, put people on either side, top and bottom, head, feet, and then you have somebody that's recording all the notes. So they're just writing down everything that everybody's doing. So I'm at the head, and so I'm just kind of examining like her face and finding all the broken bones in her face.
Yeah.
And so the doctor comes in, and we kind of give the report, and then he's like, all right. And he does the same exact thing, and he's like, don't worry, it's just Sergeant Snodgrass, just checking things out. And I was like, man, that's messed up. Because it was well known that we didn't like each other.
I gotcha.
So things die down. We're waiting on a medevac.
So he wanted to. He was like, I just want to make sure you actually got all the stuff that's wrong with this one, and didn't leave something out.
Well, I don't think it was that. I think it was more like I want her to know that like you were doing this again unnecessarily.
Nice. Gotcha.
So we were waiting on the medevac, and we're doing a shift change, but like I was in there and I needed somebody else to stay with her, so I just grabbed somebody that just walked in the door to work. So I grab them, just throw them in the room. And they were from another unit, but they had some overlap working with her. And so their immediate reaction, like, as I'm walking out the room, is like, what has happened? And like, what has, like,
Steve, what did you do?
Yeah. So her first reaction was, who attacked this person? Because she was borderline unrecognizable.
Wow.
Oh.
Then she recognized her. And then when I came back in, her first question was, which one of her soldiers beat her up?
That's how bad she was.
That was everybody else's first question. So, like, she's such a terrible person that clearly this wasn't self-inflicted. It was person on person. So
that's insane. What is your title now?
So, like my job title or rank?
No, I don't care. Your job
Rank.
title's not going to make any sense to me, obviously.
Yeah. So my rank is I'm a sergeant first class.
Sergeant first class.
Yeah.
So do you get to fly first class then when you
No.
come? I feel like if
not
I'm
what that
sergeant,
means.
I feel like if I'm sergeant first,
Yeah.
like,
Free
I feel
first
like
class mail or what?
I feel like if I'm sergeant first class, I'm walking to Delta and I'm like, right here's my my Army card. See what it says down there? Yeah, that's where I'm gonna need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've flown in helicopters bigger than this. I drive tanks.
Yeah.
I just get to do what I want on this plane.
Yeah.
I need a bigger seat that actually goes back more than an inch and a quarter.
No, they don't really. They let us board first.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. You know what though? I'm going to be completely honest.
I like
with
to
you.
board
If I'm
last.
yes.
I like
the
to board
last
last.
thing I want to do is be the first one on that plane. Those people.
Yeah.
There's two
It's
things about
stepped
people on a
on
plane.
and yeah.
Two things about people on a plane that I don't understand at all. The people that like jump up and want to get on a plane right away and then get on there and look annoyed as all get out as everybody's walking on the plane. Like, but just because you got on here first doesn't mean like it's a single file line, girl.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like I got
Yeah.
4 heads? Like I'm slow. It's my fault, not the 30,000 people behind me or the 50,000 people that just got on in front of me. It's my fault that we haven't taken off yet. No, that's not how it works. That and the people that jump up as soon as the plane stops.
Yes.
Where you going?
Yeah.
They haven't even like pulled the tarp down to cover you up or whatever. What's that thing called that you walk up the bridge?
Jetway.
Jetway.
Yeah.
They ain't even pulled that thing up. Like,
Yeah.
what? Y'all, we're in the back of the plane. You know how many people? Remember all those people you were waiting on to get on the plane?
Yeah.
That's how many people are in front of you right now.
I'll tell you.
Chill out.
I'll
just
tell you.
flew.
I just flew.
You just flew. You just
for
came
like
back
the
yesterday.
third time in my whole life. Yeah, I came back a couple of days ago.
Did you
and
stand up right away?
I didn't stand up right away
How many
because
people did?
I knew I wasn't. But here's the thing. Depending on how long your flight is, and especially if you're a guy like me who is body breaking down every single day,
Yeah.
to sit there in that uncomfortable seat for 4 straight hours, I need to stretch my legs.
Listen,
man. I need to stretch my whole body
I'm
and
cool
get up.
with standing up and just kind of getting a little stretch on at the end. All right, I got no problem with that. But there's no need to like ask to go 2 people away to get up and get your luggage out and then stand in the middle of the hallway waiting to. No, like when it comes, it's real simple to take 2 steps, reach up top, grab your bag, keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And they're all the same way as when they got on. They're all looking up there. Where he's? You guys getting off or what? No, they're not getting off because the door's not open.
Yeah. It's the same guy though that's speeding past you to get to the red light at
Yeah.
the
Yes.
same exact
We
time.
had
Yes.
that conversation a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the same exact concept. It is unnerving. So like when we tend to fly a lot, for whatever reason, we always go through DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, and that is a horrible, horrible airport.
Really?
It's actually literally, if you look at it, it's built like a 4-leaf clover.
Oh God.
So it never fails that you're like, and it's A, B, C, D. So
You're in B. You got to get to D.
yeah, and it's each clover has got like 40 gates. So it never fails that you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll get lucky. And I'll end up with like gate 40 or 30. So I'm closer to the middle.
Sure.
No, it's like, oh, you're gate like 22 and you've got to get to like, you're at Delta 22 and you've got to get to Alpha, 22. So you literally have to go as far as possible. So like,
sides of the world.
I should be good. I have a 2-hour, layover, and it's literally like a sprint across this entire airport.
Now listen, I'm
so it's
totally good.
awful.
If you got to catch a flight, I understand. You got to get and go. But come on, man. Can we all just take a big deep breath?
Man, people are so impatient
Airports.
in airports and so like inconsiderate of other people.
The
It's
most, I
crazy.
think that's probably the most. Well, I don't know. Just off the top of my head, because we're talking about it, I'm going to say it's the most inconsiderate place in the country is in airport.
Well, no,
Nobody
yeah.
cares about anybody except themselves. I'm always trying. Like somebody behind me irritated me the whole time during the flight because they were being completely inconsiderate or being mean to somebody around them. Like I'll get out when it's my turn to walk off the plane, and I'll look around. Does anybody need any help with any luggage? And I'll stand right in the middle of the hallway. And you stay right there behind me, girl. You ain't moving nowhere. Tell that lady next to you to get. She's too close to. People are just mean.
I'll
man.
tell you,
Mean.
I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole here, but when I was in LA, so I was in LA,
Yeah.
and when I was there, I found out someone said that LA was, I don't know what publication or whatever, but ranked the airport in Los Angeles as the worst airport in the world.
Wow.
And
LAX?
when LAX, yes. And when I got back to Cincinnati, I realized like CVG and LA is a way bigger place than Cincinnati. The airport in Cincinnati is a way nicer airport than
Really?
LAX.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's just nicer and seems like newer and stuff. I don't know. I mean,
It probably also doesn't get any put through, right? Like, there's probably something like LAX is probably pumping out millions of people a day.
yeah, way busier.
Yeah.
So
Way
yeah, they
busier.
don't have as much time to keep up with, I don't know. But it just, even
Just
like
seems cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner, and there are more. It seems like there are way more options for like restaurants and shops and stuff
Yeah.
like that if you got to wait for a while. But I was very surprised to see that. But
I
anyway,
also think like maybe the most inconsiderate place is like outside like a Buffalo Bills game if you're holding a folding table.
Oh,
Like,
no doubt about that.
that's happened a couple
so-
times at the Bengals tailgates this year.
So speaking of, who's your allegiance to? Are you so you're in South Carolina?
I'm in South Carolina.
You were born in Cincinnati?
Born in Cincinnati.
So you still Cincinnati guy?
Yeah,
Or now
so
that you've left, you've decided that you can trade allegiances.
so I probably traded allegiances before I left.
Okay.
So we were talking about this earlier. Growing up, like I remember going to Reds games
Sure.
and like going down and being able to like pet Shotzi and see Marge Schott and like I remember going down to pet Shotzi with my dad and there was another girl with her dad in front of us and we were just kind of just waiting their turn and one of the ushers came down and told basically everybody to leave, right? Because the ushers in Riverfront Stadium were horrible human beings.
Sure. Yeah,
So-
there'd be 30 people in the stands and you weren't allowed in the blue seats.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. God forbid.
Right.
So she snapped at the usher and literally reached into her purse because this girl was like she'd waited in line and like
Yeah.
now you're
Now
the person
coming down. Yeah.
now you're the person I'm going to take this out on. And so she like Marge Schott reached into her purse and handed the girl a World Series ring.
What?
And so like I was like, damn it. Like how could I
I was one group
we
away.
were like 2 or 3 people back from a World Series ring. Like
Unbelievable.
I was like somebody go flag that usher down again like 20 minutes.
She couldn't pay to fly Eric Davis back from Oakland when he lacerated his kidney for her, but she'll give some stranger
that
a
ring.
ring.
Yeah.
So here's my question. How many of those do you think she had in her purse?
It's got to be a ton of them, right? And who knows if they were real? It may have been candy for all I know,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
it may have been a chocolate.
all that
Chocolate
matters
World
is,
Series ring.
All that matters is you saw
I didn't
it
get one.
happen.
I didn't get one.
You didn't get one.
I didn't get one.
That is all that matters.
So I remember that, and I remember, and not necessarily like, is my memory actually correct that like Marge Schott was a good owner?
She completely decimated our farm system.
Yeah.
Right.
But other than that,
Scouting
she
department.
didn't
Yeah.
mind paying for players, and she did some good,
Sure.
and she did some bad. But I
They
wouldn't
won a World Series under her.
exactly.
regime.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So-
mean, I wouldn't call her a terrible owner, but I wouldn't call her a great owner. But we won our.
Not a people
I-
person necessarily, except to that girl that got a free ring.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
So-
I'm sure she was white. So,
So the
no offense, but that's just who Marge Schott was. I feel like that's well known, right?
Yeah. So so going through that kind of stage, and then her basically being forced out by baseball, and then baseball kind of going through some changes, the team going through some changes, and some ownership changes, and it became very clear that the new ownership groups were just not interested in necessarily winning, or at least not paying for players. And now some of that is that revisionist history because they're trying to rebuild a scouting department and a farm system.
Sure.
Probably.
You're talking specifically Reds.
specifically the Reds, right?
So, like, what years are we talking about now? Like, when they decided to give Ken Griffey Jr. all that money when they brought him in, or what guys were we not paying to bring in?
yeah. So
Carl Lindner years.
yeah.
Linder was the one who was in between Linder and Schott. Because I would say that would be the one that would probably be that guy.
Yeah.
Because that's when.
I don't remember.
Anyway.
So I was around that time, and that was also around the same time. Like Paul O'Neill got traded to the Yankees,
Yep.
and so I just remember, like watching Paul O'Neill in the World Series and then watching him get traded away to the Yankees.
Yep.
And then our ownership system sucks. And Steinbrenner at the same time is like, I'm willing to buy a World Series.
That's literally what he did.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, that's at least an ownership group that cares. So I kind of reaffiliated myself with the Yankees.
So I gotcha. So then
it got really easy to be a Yankees fan in the '90s and early 2000s.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
then it
For
just,
some people, you either liked them like that, or everyone else hated them, like the rest of the country hated them.
I mean, I
Yeah.
became a Red Sox fan during
because
that
you
time.
because you hated the Yankees.
I couldn't
so much.
stand the Yankees.
Yeah, I was the same way.
But it makes a little bit of sense. I mean, if you're gonna leave an allegiance, if you're gonna leave your hometown team,
You're gonna root for somebody
you're
that
gonna
wins.
root for somebody that's winning. It only makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
and I don't
So
know if the
I'm
Yankees
okay
were
with it.
exactly winning.
Well,
They
but
weren't
were
necessarily
still
losing; they were competitive.
Exactly,
and
They
I
were
think that
always
was the
there,
biggest difference. They were competitive.
Yeah.
So that was. I mean, I still root for the Reds, and I still follow the
Yeah,
Reds. And it's-
National League team and American League.
Yeah.
Boston's I tell everybody, Boston's my American League team. The Reds are my National League team.
and it's easy to follow the Reds. You know, when you live in the South, there's only one baseball team.
Yeah.
That's ever on. So you're gonna see Reds, you know, a couple times a year when they go to Atlanta and
Right.
play. So yeah, I think that.
So you're from where are you from? Where are you living in South Carolina again?
So I live in Columbia. I live on
Columbia.
the west side of Columbia in Lexington.
Now we
is
had
the
a
name of the town.
conversation. Oh, okay, Lexington.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation before we came on the air. So you got so you're close to a minor league team, correct?
Yep. So
My favorite baseball, by the way, is
Yeah.
minor league baseball. It's
So-
horrible baseball. Favorite baseball stadiums to go to.
Yeah,
Yes.
the fan experience, right? So the Savannah Sand Gnats.
Yes. The Sand Gnats.
Yeah.
Best names too.
Yeah.
in minor league baseball.
100%.
So they didn't want to
100%.
build them a new stadium. So Columbia basically said, we will absolutely build you a stadium if you commit to moving here. So we stole Savannah's team by building a stadium.
So you're not the Savannah Sand Gnats.
No,
you are
we're
the Columbia Sand Gnats.
We're the Columbia Fireflies.
you.
Gotta rebrand if you move.
Is
if
it
you
the
move, you
same
gotta rebrand.
mascot though? Is the Firefly the same as the Sand Gnat?
It's not.
Do they
No,
look
the
the
Sand
same?
Gnat was actually like pretty tough looking.
Oh, yeah?
But the Firefly is not a tough looking guy.
Oh, I thought
It has
that was the
glittery
opposite.
wings.
He does actually. He's a big. His
Just a
name's
big,
name's
long-
Mason.
Just a big long caterpillar.
Mason. Yeah. Well, because you put him in a mason jar.
Oh,
Holy cow!
Yeah. So
I
yeah.
feel like that would be something that they would turn that into some kind of game in between innings. There's like a giant plastic or giant inflatable mason jar, and you got to try to catch Mason.
Yeah. That's probably coming. Like it hasn't happened yet, but I'm gonna bring that
you
up.
gotta submit that idea.
Yeah.
Submit that
So
idea in. That's awesome.
So I didn't actually realize how much I missed baseball
Yeah.
until they came to town. And, you know, we just started going to games, and we were just kind of picking up tickets, just, you know, like, we're going to go to a game tonight, let's get tickets. And then this past season, I got season tickets. I think I got a half a season ticket plan,
Nice.
which is a lot of baseball.
Oh, it's a whole lot of baseball.
It's a whole lot of baseball.
I never realized how many games were in a season until Ken Griffey Jr. came to Cincinnati and we got season tickets. And it almost became exhausting
Yeah.
just to go to a game.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple nights we went to a baseball game and nobody wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
but we're going, damn it, because we
got
bought
the
these
tickets.
tickets and we're going to use them.
Yes.
And then there were times like, you know, the ticket guy is amazing because he puts up with my shenanigans. So I was like, just give me the dates, we'll print the tickets, and if you have to move the dates around, just send me an email, we'll change them. So that amount of flexibility was the other reason why I said, like, I feel like it's willing. I'm
That's
willing to be
super
able to do this.
awesome. Yeah.
And I may not be in the same seat, but I'll absolutely be in the same type of seat.
Gotcha.
So we may not be in, you know,
122 seat 4.
right. We may be in 121 seat 7 and 8. Right.
Sure.
So that amount of flexibility made it kind of worth it to be able to just like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But there were a couple times where like I put all these games in my phone, like in my calendar, and so I'm driving to work one morning and they've got like a 3-hour like, hey, plus drive time, plus this, that, and the other, and I'm like, it's like 4 day games a year, and I managed to pick 3 out of 4 of them for tickets. So I'm gonna like call them and be like, hey, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, who knew the game started at 11 o'clock this morning? So like, I'm gonna go talk to my boss and see if I could just not do the second half of this day and just go to a baseball game, which was always no.
Sure, of course, yeah.
I always told him, I was like, it's a little rude.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
I've got extra tickets. You could come
if you want.
Yeah, we could all go. But my kids, I think they really enjoy it once we get there. I think once the game starts and
the shenanigans start going down.
Yeah, I think then it starts to be okay. The idea of getting in the car and driving down there and all that stuff.
Sure.
Especially my daughter, she's like, this is going to be horrible. She's like, you're buying me a pretzel.
Hey,
I'm getting a pretzel.
Listen, that's all it takes.
I love it. Hey, you know what? I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, she knows.
Yeah.
She probably loves every second of it, but she knows if she just gives a little eye roll. How old is she?
She's 10.
Oh yeah, she gives a little eye roll and says, ugh. It's just you're buying me a pretzel. Yeah. Okay, babe, let's go.
Yeah. So it's absolutely probably where like the majority of my discretionary income goes for the entire year. Pretzels aren't cheap.
Yeah.
But
the beers aren't bad though. Usually, do they do the cheap beers and
yeah, they do. They do
like
Thirsty Thursday, so it's $2 Bud Lights.
Man, you can't beat that.
Yeah. They did a promotional this year where they had like a baseball bat glass.
Nice.
That was 30 ounces.
Yeah.
And they sold out of them. Like
I
they opened it up
guarantee
on a Thirsty Thursday. So USC, the Gamecocks, are downtown Columbia. The stadium is downtown Columbia.
Yeah.
The team got super smart and they said, hey, on Thursdays we're going to set up a special shuttle that's going to go from these 3 spots on campus.
Yeah.
You can buy a ticket for $5 to basically like standing room only in the outfield. There's a bar in the outfield.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like, on Thursdays at the end of the school year and at the very beginning of the school year, the place is packed with college kids, absolutely packed. But left field, there's like blow up bouncy houses and castles and all that other stuff. And
that's my favorite part.
They jump around
My
to those
kids love
things.
that
Yeah,
that's their favorite.
Your
part.
kids love that stuff.
They won't let me in. I tried to get in that bouncy house, and the lady was like, "Sir, I see you taking your shoes off." I was like, "Well, my daughter's in there. And I think she's in the corner. She's underneath. I gotta save her." And, no. I see 2 little girls that call you dad, and they're jumping and laughing.
Yeah.
Son of a gun. You know what I never take part in though?
What's that?
The speed gun challenge.
Oh yeah.
What do you call that? I don't even know what you call it.
Radar gun.
You won't do it out of embarrassment.
100%. My son's 6 years old, right? He's got an arm like me. It's like a wet noodle. But he wants to do the little radar thing, and there's a kid who's probably like 9, 10 years old, maybe, little guy, and his dad, and they both have 2 balls, and they're going back and forth, and dad's throwing 70, and that boy's throwing like 66, 67 miles an hour.
Holy cow!
And I was like, I walked up, and I said, we'll do 2 balls. And he gives me one and gives Parker one. I was like, oh no, they're both for him. I'm going to throw like 40 miles an hour. There's no way.
I'll try it left-handed.
Last time I think I tried that, I think I got it up to like 52.
Oh, I don't even know.
I've never had an arm. Never had that, and it's about torn to shreds.
Yeah, your shoulder's been bad for a long time.
Yeah.
So anyways, but yeah, that's awesome, dude. I love minor league baseball. So you got a half a season pass, dude. That's awesome. Good
so it's a lot of baseball, especially at the end of the year, and it drags out in the month of July. So it's 120 degrees in July in Columbia, South Carolina, right? And so it's not like it's not comfortable.
Yeah,
you're
not a comfortable heat.
Yeah, you're not going to be like, this is fun, right? Like this is exciting. But we've been lucky. It's a South Atlantic League, and so you've got a Yankees affiliate there. You've got
you get
Twins
to see
affiliate.
some of your younger
some
of your younger guys coming up for your ball club.
Yeah, so it's a Mets affiliate.
It's Mets. Okay.
Yeah, so the Yankees affiliate is in Charleston, and the Sox affiliate is in Greenville. So we have 3 single A clubs in South Carolina.
A lot of prospects.
Lots and lots.
Lots of prospects.
So yeah,
some of them will be
fun.
working at the grocery store next year, and some of them will be.
It's so difficult. I mean, they're making
Major League Baseball.
We could do a whole podcast on how the pay scale is ridiculous for minor league base. They make it almost impossible.
Yeah,
but of course,
to
they
make
have
a living.
They have 137 rounds of the draft, so
yeah.
they've got AAA, AA, single A, low A, rookie ball, 4 rookie ball teams, and all this other crazy stuff that they got for these teams. So I understand they got to spread that out, but dude, they're making like $20,000 a year.
Yeah,
like that's what they make is like $20,000 to $24,000 a year
if they're lucky, right? So somebody posted. I follow a couple different baseball feeds, and somebody posted. I guess I think he's a shortstop, and I don't know who won the AAA World Series this year.
Neither do I.
But whoever it was a starting shortstop on that team, and like the last week, like his check was, or the last month of the season, his check was $8,200. So in AAA, like, is I guess the only level, like they get completely new contracts in AAA, but up until that, like I've talked to some of those guys.
Dude, I mean, they gotta have they have families that take these guys in because they can't afford to live.
Yeah, it's actually like when you really, really break it down, you're like, this is slave labor.
It is. I mean, it really is. I mean, some of them get a good signing bonus.
Yes.
But once you run out of that signing bonus, or if you're anything after like the 3rd or 4th round, you're getting $5,000
which is 99% of the guys.
Yeah. So it's
it's super rough. I mean, and you definitely see it like when you're in low A.
Yeah.
Right. You those guys are cycling in and out a lot. Like you see a lot of kids coming in and a lot of kids going out, and you're like, well, where did they go?
Yeah, where did Dan go? Well, he couldn't feed himself, so he's back. He's back. And
you do
painting houses.
They only pay them for the time, like for the game,
right?
So that's like it's an hourly paycheck, and they only get paid for like I think it's 1 hour before the game and 30 minutes after the game. So any of the stuff they have to do at the stadium during the day or the travel time or any practice, any of that stuff's unpaid. Yeah. So
crazy.
It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough.
So, well, one thing that they do get is free uniforms, free shirts, free. They get given to them a lot of neat stuff. So I wanted before we get any further.
Oh boy,
I think I got. Oh, here we go.
Is this the T-shirt? It's official.
Hey, nice.
You, my friend.
Is this the?
You've got yourself a Nosebleed Sports Podcast T-shirt. It's not the big giant one like we have, but that's what the rest of them. And I don't know what size shirt you are.
That's probably pretty close.
Say XL.
Yeah, it's XL.
We're good then.
Yeah.
Say XL.
Yeah.
Whether you are or aren't, you are an XL.
That's what you got today, buddy.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you following us from the very beginning, man. It's been a long journey, and you've always sent us lots of fun things to. Steve has sent us many topics for the podcast. Yes. We've had topics start because of things that were sent over by Mr. Snodgrass.
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed Adam's spin on like sports and athletics.
Yeah.
Lot of conversations until like 3 or 4 in the morning in front of his house after games.
After
in
games.
High school.
Yes.
So there's always been a completely different perspective that's always been enjoyed. So like it was really easy
that's
to like
Adam.
Yeah, so it was really easy to like, oh, we're doing a podcast. We're like, well, that's absolutely going to follow that. Now you got to start super late in the day.
It is, and I apologize. We appreciate everybody that does watch it live, but it's out there afterwards.
Yeah, so I usually listen to it on Thursday morning into work.
There you go.
So
good.
And you're here. You are here for your high school reunion.
I am. Yep. So class of '99.
Are you going to the game Friday?
I am. I will be there.
Normally, the Elder Moeller game would be a really great game to watch, but I got a feeling you're going to be in for a whooping here on Friday because these Panthers are looking good, and the Moeller Crusaders are probably on the opposite end of that spectrum of looking good.
Yeah, so I actually was
not so good
looking at their scores from earlier in the season, and it's like either they're getting shut out or scoring a bunch of points. Like it doesn't seem to be any kind of consistency out of this guys. I actually thought it was a typo.
Yeah, and Elder actually, I mean, that St. X game last week that should have been. I mean, it was a blowout. It was a blowout until the last 12 minutes or whatever.
X scored a couple of times at the end of the game
in garbage time, but that was that should have been an absolute domination. It was pretty much, wasn't it? Except for the last couple minutes.
I wasn't at the game because I was out of town.
Oh, that's right, you were out of town. I always look for you to tell me how
it was.
You're always at the game.
That's like one of maybe like 8 games I've missed since I was 6 years old.
I was gonna say in your life.
Yeah. But I didn't get to see it. But that was a big win because X is really good.
Yeah.
And that was a big win for Elder. And it's but like Moeller gave the week before has not been good this year, and then gave X a really hard time. Almost beat X at X the week before. So
show up still.
That's what we were talking about before. This is sometimes GCL games.
That's true.
There are years that even Elders had years that they were a little down, and they beat a better Moeller or X team. Just because it's such a rivalry, and the kids get up so much for those games.
Yes, they do.
They're exciting.
Miss those good old days. Anyway, I never played football, obviously.
Neither did I.
I couldn't decide if I wanted to be fat or skinny, so I didn't really have a spot on the team. So do you want to do some? What we do, Steve, because you listen, so you already know, is we like to do some NFL picks.
Right.
Every single week we do NFL picks. Our locks of the week. What do we call it? The picks of the week, locks of the week. What are we calling it these days? Because I was on fire, and then I went 0 for 3 last week.
I don't know exactly what we're calling it. Just NFL picks.
NFL picks.
Just we pick against.
If you want to make money,
3 games each.
If you want to make money, follow us on. Just listen to what we say because we're obviously. No, that's actually a joke.
Well, yeah, Chris, you want to listen to what Chris says.
How do we do? Because I feel pretty confident about my picks from last week.
Yeah, I know you do.
I don't remember who they were, but I feel pretty confident by the look on your face.
Yeah, I know you do. So I went 1-2 last week, and you went 3-0.
So where does that put us overall?
Overall, I'm 7-8.
Ooh.
You are 10-5.
I'm telling you what, y'all want to make some money. Catch Sick Witted on the Nosebleed Sports podcast, and we'll get you hooked up.
Oh, the confidence is so thick right now.
Yes, that brings an 0-3 coming this week. So let's do this. So what we do is every Wednesday we go off the spread on ESPN, the ESPN app. So obviously it's not going to be the spread for Sunday. It'll be pretty close, relatively. Anyway, we're going to let you start this thing off, Steve.
Man.
Mostly because that gives me that much extra time to actually pull the app up and take a look at exactly what we're doing.
We're going to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Adam, are you ready?
I am ready.
We're going to let Steve go second, unless you're ready. You ready?
I think I could. 3 games?
3 games.
3 games.
3 most confident picks.
Most confident picks.
Have you ever put money on a sporting event?
Never. Yeah, I don't have any money.
Oh, okay.
He values his money.
Yeah, so and I've never been confident enough
Never confident even when I
these
put money
guys
down.
these guys can beat these guys.
Yeah.
I have actually in the past couple years actually paid attention to the spread.
Sure.
Just to see how good Vegas is at putting these things out. Like it is absolutely insane.
Very good. I mean, that's why they make the money.
That's why they don't lose.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't build giant buildings on
once
losses.
every 5 years and then tear them down and just build another one.
Yeah.
Exactly, on losses. All right, so go ahead, Mr. Snodgrass. Kick us off on the picks of the week for week. Is it week 6 in the NFL?
Week 6.
Yeah,
Week 6.
Big bye week this week in the realm of fantasy football. Go ahead, bud.
So I think I'm going to take the 49ers over the Rams. Laying the 3.5.
He never bets on a game. Listen to him. He's got the lingo going already. We're going to get smoked.
I doubt that. I'm actually going to take – I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take the Jets over the Cowboys, given 7.5.
Hold on a second here. That giving and laying is the same thing. The Cowboys are giving the Jets 7.5, so they're getting 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still don't understand all that. That's why I don't say those things.
Man, some of these are like
too close for comfort. Right?
You got to stay 3 points. It's always 3 points. 1.5.
So
stop it.
Just to give you an idea, normally the rule of thumb, I don't know if it's still that way or not, but it used to be the rule of thumb was pretty much if you're at home, you start off as a 3-point favorite. So if you're a 3-point favorite at home, then it's probably if it was on a neutral field, it would be pick'em game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how
Then you factor in if you're the Bengals.
Unless
or
you're the
Dolphins,
Dolphins
stuff
or
like
the
that.
Bengals, then it's automatically -8.
So I think just out of just because somebody actually has to win this game, I think it's just going to be fun to actually pick the Redskins
Oh,
in
yeah.
the absolute just mess of a franchise this week.
You ain't kidding there, buddy.
But they've got a good chance to beat the Dolphins.
I think that's the one right there. When you play the Dolphins, you've got a chance to win. All right, Mr. Schmidt, what do you got here, buddy?
So I'm taking New Orleans, who are at Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is a 1-point favorite, and so I'm taking New Orleans there. And we talked about that last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Dude, you realize that they would have to. That's either got to be a tie or they got to win the game. And you're talking about Gardner Minshew as the quarterback on the other side of the
Yeah, I'm
field.
talking about Teddy Bridgewater as the quarterback of the
You're talking
Saints.
about. Listen. Minshew built the hospital that he was born in.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when Chuck Norris goes to bed at night, he checks underneath his bed to make sure Gardner Minshew isn't there.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. And
Have you
I'm
seen
taking
Have
the
you seen this guy? Dude, have you ever seen?
Yeah.
You seen the beautiful mustache and the cut off jorts?
I have.
God, I'm so jealous of those shorts. I'm more jealous of the thighs.
Oh, I
'cause
don't know
have
if
the-
I don't know if
the
I've seen
shorts.
the shorts.
I
don't know
have
if I've
the
seen
shorts. I have them. Have you ever seen
I know.
my
Yes,
shorts?
of course.
Yeah,
I've
picture
seen
those on somebody with much bigger thighs.
The crazy thing is that they're different lengths. Like he didn't even cut them even. He just they're like 2 inches off. You're like, what were you
Dude is
doing?
so
Fold
awesome.
those babies in half. Give it one snip across.
Yeah.
You're good to go.
That guy is so awesome. I love everything about him.
So I've got New Orleans there. I'm taking the Chargers. They're playing Pittsburgh, and the Chargers are 7-point favorites at home. And the Pittsburgh Steelers may be playing with their third-string quarterback this week because Mason Rudolph
is Mason Rudolph still
concussion
lying?
protocol.
Is he still lying on the field, lifeless at this moment in time?
I think he is. I did hear.
Didn't they drag him off by his toes? Isn't that what they?
Vontaze Perfect did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got New Orleans, I've got the Chargers, and then I've got Green Bay, who are 4-point home favorites against Detroit. And I'm taking Green Bay there. So I've got New Orleans, LA Chargers, Green Bay, Packers.
So
That's how I pronounce it.
Steve, this is what I do. While Adam talks, I just flick this thing up and down. And then I just kind of make a stop, and I say, okay, Minnesota -3 at home against Philadelphia. I'm taking Philadelphia. Philadelphia +3. Write it down. And for all you out there listening, get your pen and paper out because I'm on fire right now. What am I, 10-5?
You're 10-5.
10-5, brother. You want to make some money. Check it out. All right, so here we go. So we're going to go with Philadelphia and let's see. Man. We'll go.
Go ahead and take the Giants.
No,
Go ahead.
you know what I'm
you
going to
want
do? It's the home dog. We're going to go. My home dog of the week is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting 2.5 against Carolina. And I would never take anything with the Giants, especially against New England.
17 points, though?
That could be.
Yeah, I was tempted.
It's a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a lot of points, and they've been covering, so I'm not messing with New England. And then I'm going to take, let's go with, I'm going to take, you know what I'm going to do?
I don't yet.
But you do now.
I will.
I am going to take, man, I've taken Atlanta. Atlanta's been my Achilles heel this year. But I'm going to take Atlanta -2.5 in Arizona. All right, so read those back to me. I didn't write them down.
All right, so you've got Philly +3.
Philly.
You've got Tampa Bay -2.5.
Tampa Bay, and then Atlanta.
And you have Atlanta -2.5.
There you go. All right, we got them. So that's the locks of the week. So write them down, get them ready to go. That's where it's at.
We do have a question from Facebook Live.
Hey, the Facebook
For
Live.
Steve.
What do we got?
Oh, my. Terrible.
No, this is what it's all about here.
Is the Army Navy game really within the Army and Navy, within the Army, as big a deal for folks
who didn't go to the academies
as the media like hypes it up to be.
Right.
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
So
no, it's a big deal.
You get just as big on that even though you didn't go to...
So, I mean, I don't think... I mean, we were at work that weekend when Army almost beat Michigan.
Yeah.
And, we have a couple people that get a little crazy, and they're like, they'll connect their phone to a TV that they brought in from home, and it's in an office or whatever, and everybody will... Every once in a while just stick their head in and be like,
sure,
who's winning or whatever. But we legitimately, there's 20 people crammed into an office watching that overtime. So there's not a lot of West Point graduates. They will fondly refer to it as the Hudson River School for Boys. And they will always say, the best view of West Point is in your rearview mirror as you're driving away from it. But I think that, what it represents and what it embodies in the history and the kind of heraldry that all of the service academies have kind of provided to the overall force structure is invaluable. I mean, it is a MIT level engineer school. It is a Harvard level type of education. I mean, it is a
I've always heard that it's all...
I mean, all of the service academies are, if they could actually be analyzed and ranked, they would probably exceed every single Ivy League school out there. So they're amazing.
What are the other schools? Because, I mean, everybody knows West Point, right? Everybody knows West Point.
So there's Annapolis for the Marine Corps and Navy.
Okay.
And then there's the Air Force Academy.
Which is just the Air Force Academy.
Just the Air Force Academy, yeah.
So West Point's got the coolest name, then, by far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because Annapolis, they call it Annapolis because that's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I feel like that's not even the name. That's like if you went to Kentucky.
Yeah. So it's and I've been to West Point. I've been to Annapolis. Visiting. Both.
Thankfully,
but
right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
We've already discussed. We've already discussed our grading. How all three of us did schooling wise.
So
there's a reason we're in my basement talking into a microphone and not.
Yeah, and they're amazing. Institutions. They're amazing, living museums that you can walk around. Right. So I mean the two main barracks at West Point are Grant and Lee. For General Grant and General Lee. So I mean, that's you're not going to get you're not going to get that at another university. You're also not going to have any fun there either. But but so no, it's absolutely. I still think it's a big deal. I still think it's important. I agree with the current administration's decision to allow service academy graduates who are drafted by professional teams to defer their commitment to be able to pursue a professional career.
That just happened because that just came up. What was that? 2 years ago? Was it 3 years ago that just came? I mean, it's been recent that this all came up because they had a guy who they kept talking about possibly having him at the Heisman Awards. I mean, he was can't remember who he was, but he was really good.
So the previous administration had, I guess, made a verbal agreement with an NFL team that they were pursuing. I believe it was a Navy graduate.
Yeah.
Basically said, if we use a draft pick on this guy, you're going to let us have him. And they were like, no.
Nope. He's going to be in a submarine.
Right. And then they came back and they kind of worked it out and they said, absolutely, we actually do think this would be a positive thing for everybody involved. Yes, if you use a draft pick, you can draft him, you can take him, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then they actually drafted him, and then they went back on the deal.
Oh.
So
that's rough.
So that left a super sour taste, obviously, in a lot of people's mouths. Not obviously just the NFL and that team, but
how about the guys playing on the football teams,
the service member and everybody else. Right. So everybody was like, if there was an agreement, whether it was in writing or not, whether it was legal or not, right?
Mhm.
Like somebody said it, and somebody should have figured out a way to kind of honor it. So for them to actually go in and kind of put that in, I think it would be as like a recruiting tool. I think it would actually be pretty beneficial if somebody on Monday night is saying like West Point.
Yeah. Sure. So, do those schools they recruit football players?
They do.
All right, so they're still recruiting football players.
Yeah. They just you're finding literally a diamond.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're finding a kid who's good enough to play Division I football.
But also wants
to make a commitment.
Yeah, who also wants to be in the Army for 6 years after he graduates.
And have no fun for the 4 years he's in college, like every other college kid.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
There's an elder graduate that recently just this season became a coach for Navy. PJ Volker.
Yeah.
PJ Volker.
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yep. I think he's a linebackers coach at Navy.
Because he was at PJ used to ref down at the sports mall.
Sports mall. Yeah, he refs some of my games. He
refs some of our games at the sports mall. But he was coaching wasn't he coaching at the Mount?
He may have been.
I think he was coaching at the Mount for a little while.
He went somewhere else, kind of big, I think, for a while.
Yeah.
And he just
I went to school.
Navy.
I graduated with his brother Joe Volker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember
PJ,
that name.
yeah, he used to ref us in basketball.
Yeah.
He was.
Was he a good ref?
Well, considering the ones that were around with him,
good officials.
Yes,
at the sports mall.
he was probably the best out of all of them because he would actually pay attention. That's all you had to do. If you paid attention, you were a good ref.
Would he just stand at half court and just kind of shift his weight from one side
he
to
moved
the other?
a little bit more. He was a younger fellow. He's only only 2 years older than me, I think.
Yeah.
He
was between you and I.
Oh, he's between us too. Okay, so he was in between us.
Yep.
Yeah, he was. So there you go. I didn't know that. Congratulations, West Point. Huh? That's got to be a fun place to coach.
Sorry, it wasn't
very demanding.
It's Navy.
Annapolis.
Yeah. But anyway.
The Eagles did sign a West Point graduate this year.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, so they did get that deal made. I don't know if I ever heard if he made the roster, but they did figure it out. He got signed. And I think that's going to be a positive move. I mean, I think that you can figure that out, right? Like he can go teach or give speeches at high schools, and
he can be a recruiter.
He could be a recruiter, right?
Did you ever do the recruiting side of things?
No,
you never did.
No, so before I was back on active duty, I worked in like sales and stuff like that. So
it's so funny that the Army has a sales department.
Absolutely, we have a sales department, but
that's a tough job, man.
Yeah,
to sell the Army.
It's a business like any other, right?
I think it's like you have a product, right, and you have a customer base, right? Like we ideally know who we want.
Sure.
High school guys.
And then we have to be able to figure out like, okay, once I find a potential customer, I have to be able to figure out what does my potential customer gain by taking my product.
Right.
So for some people it's college money they'll never use.
Yeah.
Some people it's health insurance, some people it's skills, some people it's whatever. So I don't think it's hard to sell the benefit.
You're going to find somebody.
Right.
Pretty easily.
So from talking to the recruiters that I know, they'll talk to probably about 25 to 50 kids to get one. And it's not because those other 49 don't want to join. It's they don't meet the qualifications.
I gotcha.
So it's easier to get into college than it is to get into the military.
Really?
Wow. Absolutely.
Man, you always hear like, oh, I'm just going to go to the military.
Yeah.
No.
I'm
just going to.
So we actively discriminate, right? Like you're too tall, you're too skinny, you're too fat. But you're diabetic. You have bad eyesight.
Skinny and fat you can take care of, right?
Yeah, and so we help those people out.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
but
you're not going to be able to make Shaq shrink, but
right.
And I'm not growing, so.
But it's like your eyesight's too bad. Your hearing is too bad. Your teeth are too bad.
Your teeth?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Right. So because once we've got you, we've got to take care of you, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to like take on an unnecessary bill.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah,
so it's absolutely easier, and where we're really feeling that crunch is in like the special operations community. So you're talking about 1% of 1% of 1%. So is the total number of just available people, that could join shrinks. Well, it's already a shrinking pool. That pool is even going to get even smaller and smaller and smaller. So the special operations communities are feeling that crunch even more.
Yeah.
And they're not changing their standards. So the ones that we do have get used more.
Right. So you've been doing this for 20 years. Do you obviously enjoy your job enough to continue to re-enlist?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is the re-enlistment every time you re-enlist?
So the last 3 re-enlistments I did were for 6 years each.
6 years each. Now, do you have a choice in that, or do they come at you and basically say, "Here's the deal, I'm going to give you a 6-year contract"?
You negotiating a contract?
Yeah,
or else
Bryce Harper.
Yeah. So I could.
That's kind of what
I could say I only want to do a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I mean, that's dumb, but here you go. Because who knows if we're going to need you or want you in 2 years, right? So I think it's, to a certain extent, it kind of locks everybody into each other.
Yeah.
But no, I think the next one I do will probably be the last one I do.
Yeah.
So once you get to 20 total federal active duty service years, then they don't let you go kind of whole hog at a time, right? Then they're like, so you get reviewed.
You're getting old now.
Yeah.
Hold on,
yeah.
like you said, you're just another bill.
Yeah, so it really does become like, how much more potential do you actually have in this organization?
Yeah.
So like, are you going to get promoted again? Will you fulfill some sort of strategic or organizational need? And if not, like, we're just going to part ways.
Yeah.
You're representing like a block in the system for somebody that's behind you that
could
potentially could be growing beyond where you've kind of stagnated. So I think that the current contract I have will take me to that end.
Yeah.
And then I'll get reviewed and they'll basically say like, okay, you can stay, but we're only going to give you 1 year, and basically that's your year to kind of like tie up all your loose ends and plan your retirement ceremony.
I heard those are like some of the absolute coolest things you can ever go to. Is like if you have I have a guy I work with whose daughter put in 25 years in the, I want to say she was in the Navy. Yeah, Navy. Because she was on a ship all the time. But I mean, it brought him to tears.
Yeah.
When they come out with, it's just for you.
Yeah.
And, all that stuff. It's a pretty neat thing, they say.
So we don't do a lot of stuff where it's like, it's all about me.
Yeah.
Right? It's usually all about us.
Right.
So then when you have an entire day where like everything stops and just becomes about you, and it's even, usually they're only like an hour.
Sure,
right?
but still.
But there's a whole planning, part of that comes in beforehand, and there's a, during and after. And so you do see it. I get too emotional. Like, I've worked with a lot of these guys now because I've been down there for 12 years. So I've worked with most of these folks now for the better part of a decade. And so you're saying goodbye to somebody that you worked with like almost every day for 10 years. Yeah. And so it gets to the point where you're like, it's a great thing, right? It's great for somebody to get to that point and retire, but it's like just constantly saying goodbye to different people.
Yeah.
You just so now I'm really great at setting up and putting out like the cheese platters and everything for the after,
and then you slip off and
then I don't go to the actual ceremonies anymore.
Yeah, for the after party.
Yeah.
There you go. So you're coming up on the end. That's are you going to, or in your job, do you have the ability to retire, take your pension or whatever, and then possibly go back in and do the same type of work for the Army, like as like an outside contractor?
Like a contractor?
I know a lot of people do stuff like that.
I can.
You got time.
You don't have to make the decision right.
Yeah, make it on the podcast.
Yeah, so I actually
breaking news.
Yeah,
let me call General. Who's the general right now?
Yeah, General McCarty. He'd be thrilled to get a phone call at 11 o'clock at night. So no, I actually just recently applied for a job that would actually shift. I would leave the active duty program, go back to like 1 week in a month, but I would be able to extend my career to the age of 60 doing that. Wow. So, at the end of the day, like, the numbers just weren't there, and the position probably wasn't totally right. But there are other positions in the state that, if the numbers worked and the position was right, then I would absolutely pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So it's really easy, right, to just know that you're going to have a job, because I'm going to have to work somewhere when I retire till I'm 60. or older. So to know that like I could stay in this organization where everybody already knows me and I already know everybody.
Double dip. You're
right?
and I can double dip on.
Yeah. So that would be great.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen.
So there was another question I was going to ask. Oh, if you were, so you've been doing this now for, like you said, going on 20 years. What would you tell to a young fella getting ready to enlist right now?
So it's a very different world and it's a very different Army. Like when I joined in '99, like we were not in a war. We hadn't really been a couple
years away, but
yeah. The last major conflict we had was Desert Storm, and I don't most people wouldn't call that a major conflict. So then you're going all the way back to again Panama Grenada, still not a major conflict, right? And so
Korea next,
and then you're going all the way back to Vietnam, right? Yeah. So my recruiter was great. He was very honest with me. He's like, "We're overdue. It's absolutely going to happen in your career. So just be mentally prepared for that." I'm probably one of the few people that's constantly defending young people.
Yeah.
Because that's who I mainly work with.
Yeah.
And, for as much, baggage as, young people tend to get heaped upon them today, there's still young men and women out there that are still signing up, knowing 100% what they're getting into.
Sure.
Right? So whether you join the National Guard, the Reserves, or the active duty, it doesn't matter what branch of service, and you've joined after September 11th, you know 100% what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you're going to end up someplace unpleasant.
Right.
And I don't think that was the case for me. I don't think when I signed up in '99, for the Ohio National Guard that I knew or had any real concept of what was going to change in just a few years.
Yeah.
The advice I give most young people, honestly, is because I've actually just started talking to my neighbor who's 24, I think.
Yeah.
Very, very fit young man, very mechanically inclined. And I told him, I was like, you know what, we need helicopter mechanics bad. And, you do a couple years with us and maybe you love it and maybe you do 20.
Yeah.
Maybe you do 6 and you didn't like it.
Yeah.
But you still have all those skills and you can go be a contractor overseas and fix the same helicopter overseas for a contract company making 6 figures, in 9 months. So, I tell people, know 100% of your benefits and exploit 100% of your benefits. So, get in, use it for what it's worth, and if you figure out you love it, then stay. If you figure out you've got what you needed out of it, then go.
Yeah.
But the fact that we still have people come and join, knowing what they're getting themselves into, I don't believe a lot of the negative hype on young people today.
You mentioned 9/11. Where were you? Were you in the active duty at that point in time?
No, so I was in the National Guard.
You were still in the National Guard.
I was in the National Guard, but it was kind of a strange transition point. So I was at the USC or UC Blue Ash campus.
Yeah.
I was in a paramedic class. And that was for the most part before I had a flip phone.
Yeah.
But I didn't have I didn't have a smartphone. And so everybody started getting, and it's most of the people in that class were firefighters and EMTs and things like that. It was me and one other guy in the Army from our unit.
Yeah.
And I had just kind of interviewed and done some physical tryout stuff to be in the Special Forces unit that's in Columbus. So, we're getting phone calls and text messages with the we don't care what you're doing, leave now, come here.
Wow.
So we kind of were we're going.
Just got up in the middle of class and left?
We got to go. And so, but everybody else was the instructor was what? And I was I don't know, the Army's calling. We're leaving.
This dummy is just CPR. It's not going to get CPR. This dummy's going to die. Sorry.
This, but that dummy's out.
And so everybody else in the class was something's going on because I'm getting text messages and phone calls and people still have pagers, right? So people are I'm getting everybody I know is sending me 911, call me, 911, call me. So it was a crazy day. And I spent, a couple days in Columbus, just kind of ready to go. We didn't go anywhere.
Just kind of hanging out to see if something was going to happen or not.
And they some of those guys went. I wasn't one of them.
What do they do with you in that case? So you go to Columbus. Is there somewhere they put you up, or they just stick you in a bunch of hotels? Or
no, you just sleep on the floor. So yeah, we slept in the Armory, and it's just a steel building, concrete floor. So just
pop out your sleeping blanket and
get someplace comfortable. We were allowed. So I was on like the training team then.
Yeah.
So we weren't actually allowed in the building most of the time. So we had to sit outside. Ugh. So they at least let us inside.
Well, nice.
so that was way better.
Yeah, than what it had been.
Yeah. So rain, shine, sleet, snow, just stand out there.
Yep.
So yeah, it wasn't. That was exciting because you don't know what's going to happen, and it's nerve-wracking because you don't know what's going to happen. It's scary because you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. It's exciting because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But
every kind of emotion you can possibly have,
and mostly what it was boredom.
Isn't that crazy?
That's an emotion too.
Yeah, because you're like, I thought, like, what? Let's go. Let's go get these guys. Man. Let's go get them. And they're like, just calm down.
Yeah,
like
we'll send you when it's time.
We'll let you know. Like, trust us. Like,
just put your medical tape away.
Yeah,
and just put it in your duffel bag and just hold on a second.
So yeah,
man, how about that?
But I don't know. For the most part, that event obviously clearly changed the world. It clearly changed my life. It changed thousands and thousands of people's lives.
Did that make you want to stay more, or were you ready to go at that point? Or were you thinking more of, oh, man, maybe this isn't what I want to do?
So, no, I was...
Because you're a young guy at that point. You might, I mean, you could have been held
so I only had, I was more than halfway through my first contract. So that would have been like one of those opportunities to be like, maybe this isn't the place for me.
Yeah.
I think that unit specifically was a really unique place. Like, I'd gone from the Armor unit that was here in Cincinnati up there. And it's a smaller group of people. They're much more motivated, right? Everybody's very type A and kind of gung-ho. So when you've got a big group of people and you're like, hey, guys, let's clean up this bus, right? All of a sudden there's 25 people trying to go clean up a bus, right? Versus if the unit here in Cincinnati was like, hey, go clean up the bus. Like, there would be 25 people staring at each other trying to figure out how not to go clean the bus. So it was easier in those in that time. Like, I'm younger, I wasn't married, and I didn't have a family and any of those other commitments. So it was easier to be like, this is absolutely what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to jump out of airplanes and save the princess.
Yeah.
Right. But but yeah, that's I've never really wavered. There was a time, it was 2008. I had 9 years in.
Yeah.
I've always said 10 years was the magic mark. And you kind of go over 10, you're kind of pot committed to 20.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity. I was actually going to get a signing bonus.
Hey. See?
So
something about negotiating those contracts.
So, but the deal was if I did 6 years, I was going to get twice as much if I did 3 years. Well, either way, I was going to end up over 10. And so my thing was, well, either I'm doing 6 years and we're 100%, we're all into 20, or I'm walking away 100%. And I had that feeling like I don't feel like I'm done with what I can do in the Army. I don't feel like the Army is done with what they can do with me. So, I signed up for another 6 years, and it's been 6 years after that, and then another 6 years. So yeah, it's probably never going to stop. Like, ideally, I will stay a total number of years would be 28 total years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
there you go.
That would be ideal. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that would be ideal.
I haven't even been alive 28 years yet.
You're a young man.
Yeah.
Young man. Well, Steve, listen, man. Hey, we appreciate.
Yeah, it was
I'm
awesome.
sure you hear it all the time. We appreciate your service.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Real quick, before we get out of here, I know I'm terrible at this. As soon as I say something, I think about it. As somebody in the service, when people say, I appreciate your service, does that eventually get old and annoying? Or is it like, or do you really feel the appreciation?
So we really feel the appreciation. So Columbia is a military town. It's Fort Jackson. It's the largest training base. Like, more people go to basic training in Columbia than anywhere else.
Okay.
All right. So there's always military people walking around Columbia. Now, mostly they've been in the Army 9 weeks.
Right.
Right. So they don't 100% count.
Yeah.
But so like when they get thanked for their service, it's a little like,
well, he really hasn't done
appreciate
anything.
it. Yeah. Thank you for your potential service,
They
maybe.
they just worked him out and got him in shape.
Yeah.
Really, we've helped him.
Right.
He's done nothing for you.
Right.
Yet.
So
You're welcome for your service.
It's the hardest question because it's suddenly it's about me when it's never supposed to be about me. It's a team aspect. I actually have, just because to avoid being thanked. Yeah. I actually now come to work in like just civilian clothes, and I leave work in civilian clothes. So I change out of my uniform and into my uniform.
Really?
So I don't have to travel that way.
It's not that it's something that annoys you when people say that stuff, but it's slightly uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable because it makes it about us, right? And it's not about me. It's
but
about.
It's okay to say, right?
So
like, it's not something where I'm annoying some guy.
No,
it's
absolutely
just
not.
Making you slightly uncomfortable, but that's okay.
Yeah, so
I'm all about making people uncomfortable.
Everybody should absolutely, if you want to thank everybody for their service, thank everybody for their service. I will say that you should probably thank your local police officers, firefighters, and EMTs just as much, if not more.
100%.
Because there's some neighborhoods in some of these towns that are probably worse than some of the neighborhoods I was in overseas.
Yeah.
But it's a hard question to answer because what do you say? Like, well, they pay me every day, so I come. Yeah. So it's hard to be. We were going through an airport one time, and somebody told one of our captains, "Thank you for your service," and he was just having a really bad day. We'd been traveling for like 4 days straight, from overseas back to here,
the States.
And like being hopped around different airports all over the world. And so he's like, "What the fuck am I supposed to say to that?" Like, and she the person was still there, like, well, I'll never say it to you again. And so
she's probably never said it to anyone ever.
So he's like, that's terrible. I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, you're just tired. Yeah. Like, you need a Snickers. And so yeah, it's absolutely keep saying it to everybody. Yeah, absolutely say it to everybody. Just don't be totally shocked when they kind of give you thanks.
If they do give you kind of a roll in the eye or something like that, it's nothing that you did personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. I've always wondered that because sometimes it feels like, man, how annoyed is this guy probably from hearing that all day, every day, whatever, when they come back?
Not enough that he's not changing out of his uniform before he leaves his office.
I got you. Yes. That's where you're at.
Yeah. And what it really turned into is it actually turned into something that was more uncomfortable for my kids.
Oh, yeah.
So we would be at a restaurant because I'd pick them up and we're just like running through Chick-fil-A or whatever. Yeah. And then there's 10 people coming up to me and they started to kind of feel like, I don't thank you for your service every day. Like, shit. I was like, just let's move on. Yeah. Let's get your food. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I feel like I honestly did it more for them, and it was just easier for us to move around in activities after work if that was just taken out of that equation.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, well, once again, man, appreciate the service.
Yeah,
we appreciate the follow. We appreciate all of the support that you've given the Nosebleed Sports Podcast over the past couple years. Yeah, man, thanks a bunch.
We appreciate you being here.
You guys are awesome. I appreciate
and
it all.
Coming into town and taking time to come down to the Rum Dum Studios and hang out.
I think he's gonna stop by his high school reunion, but he came here specifically for this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is
a big
had
deal.
this planned for a while.
We have.
I mean, we planned this way before the reunion.
Yeah,
right?
I think I actually committed to this before I committed to the football game on Friday.
There you go. All right, man. Well, once again, we appreciate it. Check out the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. We're every Wednesday night, 10:30 p.m. live on the Facebook Live, and you can catch us on all of the other platforms. The Instagram, no, not the Instagram.
No,
we're on the
SoundCloud.
Oh, stay tuned because I think I posted our very first picture to the gram. That's what I heard the kids call it the other day.
Yeah, that's right,
the gram.
And what is our handle on the Instagram?
Nosebleed Sports. podcast.
Okay.
Check out the
We'll get
Nosebleed
back
Sports
to you.
Podcast. It's got the picture. It's got our logo on it. If
There
you
you
follow
go.
us anywhere
Just
else, it's
search
the same logo.
Nosebleeds.
Nosebleed Sports, however you want to do it. But check it out on the gram, man. We're on the gram.
Officially.
I still got to figure out the Insta Snap and some of the other ones, but we're going to get this thing going. So anyway, you can check us on out all the other platforms, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, the FaceTube, and every other tube there is. Adam, Steve, thank you so much. Adam, everybody out there, don't forget to turn your headlights on.